As well, hey, welcome to Embrace the Power, and my boy Mike Jeever down here in Tampa. We got actress Anne-Marie Johnson on. We're about to touch off and talk about a couple hot topics that are happening in Hollywood because it's all on the news. Mike, how are you doing today, man?
Grinding, we're doing shows left and right, man. We're doing our thing. And we have a special guest that's been here before, but she's here again.
That's right.
Anne-Marie Johnson. Love it.
Hello.
Hey, Anne, how are you doing? And Anne-Marie, I know you've been busy and you got a hard stop, so let's just get right to it. So the Writers Guild strike, and this is not the first one. And, I did my homework, so I know we've had a few back in the day. But this one seems to be a little bit more with a little bit more bite because once we're dealing with inflation, second, we're dealing with people's lives and incomes to be able to sustain life out in California, which is expensive. But also we're dealing with something new. The writers retaining their rights to what they write. So what's going on from your preview? You understand what's happening there because you're there.
Well, yeah, and hi. For us, it's good morning. I know it's good afternoon for you guys. So the situation is that this is probably going to be the most important job action that the entertainment industry has seen. Not just because of the AI, and we'll talk about that situation, but this really has to do with calling a job action after a historic shutdown of the world because of the pandemic. What is quite, and inflation, but most specifically the pandemic. What is interesting though is that our industry thrived. We figured it out before a lot of other people. If you noticed, there really wasn't that much of a delay in product. People were not demanding for new product because we were prepared. Our talent unions and our employers got together and really laid down some rules that many found abhorrent, but they actually worked. We had, without question, mandatory vaccination, mandatory proof of vaccination, mandatory masks at all times unless you're on camera. It was a condition of employment, vaccinations. There were many who were against that because they thought it was a violation of the rights of the control of their body. But we'd never faced anything like this. In 1918, there was no vaccination for the flu. But because there was a successful vaccination policies, we survived it. So the strike right now is not about financial survival because our employers made billions during the pandemic. There was a slight hiccup, but they continued to make billions because of reruns of product that was already in the can that they could piecemeal out.
Right.
So they're trying to use that argument, but the argument is a specious one because we know the entertainment industry survived better than any other industry in this country during the pandemic. So that's one thing. Actors, just like writers, are not getting, and forget about fair. There's no such thing as fair.
Okay, yeah, so fair. Cut that one out of the equation.
Right? That word does not exist. But actors and writers do not get their share of the pie during the production of a product, and once the product moves on to other distribution platforms.
Right.
And that's where we find ourselves. And the Screen Actors Guild, which I'm a national board member, SAG-AFTRA, we start our negotiations on June the 7th. So it's going to be a very rough time of it, but I'm 100% in favor and in support of the writers. And, people talk about, if it goes on too long, it's not about going on too long. It's about getting what we deserve.
Right. I mean, I think the struggle is, and even historically with the strikes, is that people forget that quality of life does matter. And then it's an integral part of what we do. But when you look at the strikes for the writers and you look at you guys going into negotiations, and then the same problem we're having with sports, high school sports right now, because of NIL money that's coming in and young people are starting to get money that they never would have got 30 years ago. when you start looking at it, I think the pandemic opened up two things when it comes to you guys. One, when you're talking about the reruns and all the other stuff, it opened up a new, it helped some industries grow because of the pandemic. So normally some businesses that weren't doing, they were doing okay streaming. Let's just talk about it. Streaming is now the money man. It's a money maker because during the pandemic, it was like the perfect storm for them.
Yes. And it's quite interesting because I did a complete online series during the pandemic via Zoom. I mean, the pandemic, it was quite interesting. We now have a whole segment of my industry, which is casting, the casting offices. Casting offices no longer exist.
What? They got
we all do our auditions now we tape our auditions or we do it during a Zoom. There's no more face-to-face. The casting directors have figured it out, which saves millions of dollars for production offices because they don't have to pay for casting offices.
So you're saying nobody's sitting on the sofa waiting to go in the room the next time around?
You do it just like this. You do it like we're doing. So my industry figured it out and ran with it and will not go back to the way it was.
So it was cost effective is what you're saying.
Which is cost effective. Is it as artistically sound as it was before? No. Are we seeing less talented people on television and movies now? Yes. Because they're relying on YouTube, all the other social media platforms to find talent. So content, not writing necessarily, but on-camera content hasn't gotten better, but it's costing my employers less to do it that way. See, we figured it out.
Yeah, it costs less. Right. Go ahead, Mike.
Right. Oh, excuse me. She's right because I'm not an actor, but I always like the art. The art form has always intrigued me, music and acting. But you can notice when somebody acts good and when somebody acts is like, what? Excuse my French, what the fuck? So, like, what is it? Like, who is it? Because now Netflix are producing movies, Amazon movies, and this, that, all these other, showcases and stuff like that. But the thing is, they're horrible. They're not
they're
quality.
Horrible. I mean, and I think everyone has noticed the quality has just dropped considerably, specifically on platforms that provide you the series right away, right? So there's no once a week you're going to see it. Although they're changing, they figured it out. They were cannibalizing themselves by allowing all 7 to 13 episodes to be available right away because the average human being would watch it all in one day and then want more. It's like crack. I want more. So they needed to fulfill that I want more. And so the quality of the shows are horrible. I mean, but putting that aside, because, art is like pornography, right? What may be disgusting to one person is titillating to the other person, right? So, but the actual reality of it is the talent, are getting cheated left and right when it comes to residuals, royalties, how many writers can you have in a room? They talk about Netflix and Amazon, and they talk about, diversity. Well, yeah, we may be working more, but we're making less. Making less. So it's really, that's why I'm saying that right now, the writer's strike is without question the most pivotal time in the entertainment industry, even more important than the introduction of sound.
Wow. So let me ask you, we're going to touch on this real quick on the evolution of our artificial intelligence, which I talked to Dr. Gila Kunst over in Israel about just before me and you got on. And the thing is that there's not at least 9 articles today in the news on social media about the impact of artificial intelligence and how there's very little guidelines, very little ethical guidelines. And then the fact that the guy that owns it pretty much says he's going to keep developing it. Now, how people use it is not really, on him. It's on the people that use it, the platform. But the writers really saw, a couple of writers actually wrote some good op-eds on how that would impact their industry. So with there being no real legal grounds in place, how are the writers going to navigate that waters? Because, they'll get into court and the court's going to be like, well, this is not your original writings, but there's sprinkles of this and that all over the place,
We've been here before, but it wasn't called AI, right? So we've been here with motion capture. On-camera performers. We've been here before. Fortunately, and also listen, not that I play video games but didn't John Madden football, that whole thing? And the players, the NFL dealt with it. The players now have I guess participate in the profit of those games.
Oh, they do now, because it was the college players that were getting robbed because they were making so much money off the college players, and that's why NIL came around, and because they were killing the college players.
That's why I think at least with on-camera talent, we're going to have to watch that very carefully, because not only can AI recreate or create scripts, they can recreate and create me. So, and in my contract, in my union's contract, I am in control of the use of my likeness and being. But with AI, what does that do? Who owns my likeness? Who owns my voice? Who owns my mannerism? Do I have to trademark myself? What do we have to do? This is a slippery slope, and it's just the beginning. I have a feeling that our employers have already figured it out, and we're really going to be behind the 8 ball unless we all get together, writers, actors, directors, get together and stop it now and start the financial participation of
right.
it.
Because NIL is talking about their likeness, because financially it was, they were making profit and the college players were not making any money off it. So financially it was killing the college players on them not being able to profit off their likeness and off their looks and off that. So let me be really clear with that. So they were taking the money to the bank, and the players were literally being just, their likeness was being used for somebody else's profit.
And that's the same thing the concern. It's not a fear, it's a concern. It's real that this will now slowly move into the entertainment industry. It'll hit the writers first, and then it'll hit on camera talent. So we've got to get together and do something about it. I know job actions are painful. I know that it is, especially after a pandemic, but we have to keep in mind that my industry thrived during the pandemic, unlike other industries.
Oh yeah. And so as you look going forward, looking at all of this transcending, you guys got a little bit of work ahead of you guys.
We have a lot of work. And keep in mind, with the Screen Actors Guild, with SAG-AFTRA, we represent about 160,000 people, right? But
right.
At any time, 98% of us are unemployed. Strike is very different when you're dealing with a community that is perpetually unemployed.
I don't even know how actors or writers survive in the business they're in, because that's a passion of love, because there's the highs and then there's the lows, and
there's more lows and there's more lows. What you have to, I hear no 99% of the time.
Do you really?
Sure. No,
then,
not you. You're not right. You're too old. You've been around too long. We need fresh faces. You're too expensive. We can find a younger you. I hear no 99% of the time.
Yeah, but and it's funny is that you look at some of the shows and they're okay with doing Brady, 80 and Brady? I'm leaving that alone. If I'm going to get canceled today, let me stop.
Yeah, but that's one film out of 1,000.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you notice the new version of the book club, I don't know, the new film, where are the Black women? Where are the women of color? Do they not have any friends of color? I mean, that's another, that, you know
So,
what?
oh yeah, we're moving right back to where we started before.
That's another show.
Hey, so I was going to
Started
touch on. What I was going to touch on is you've moved behind the camera a little bit. So how's that going for you?
I really like it. I'm really kind of transitioning more into producing than anything else. And the online series that I told you about from the nonprofit that I co-founded called the Mankind Initiative. We did a whole series about the relationship between the community and the police department. We are now in pre-production, talking about women and their children facing homelessness. So that's going to be our next series. And I'm also in the early stages of producing a full-length film telling the story of the first African-American police officer.
Oh, the one out in, where's that, in California or Texas?
In California,
right.
The first LAPD, African-American LAPD officer.
Your dad?
No, no. It was a formerly enslaved man who migrated all the way west and became the first Black officer in California.
Oh, that's I was just watching a couple documentaries today, and I don't think I love this. There's some guy on TikTok right now is talking about untold stories of African American history and how some very prosperous African Americans were very prosperous in what they did, but they lost it all because of mobs and different things. But just if you're given opportunity, where we would be if the situations never happened, if people never got jealous or envious.
That's another topic, right? This whole conversation about reparations.
Yeah. I'm still waiting on that 40 acres and a mule, but
yeah. I mean, that's going to be a really interesting story, but I'm much more interested in telling stories that about real events, real people, especially about our history. Because we ever had control of our history? No, but we're losing the little control that we had, especially in your state. So I think it's really important to start telling these stories and maybe put a pause on the silly stories and then spend the next 20 years telling our story.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with, if you sit down and do an analysis of most African-American students right now, if you were to sit down and get them all in a room and say, hey, let's go ahead and go through some African-American history. Let's just go through historical Black history. You would probably be shocked the amount of kids that are out of touch. We've grown up with almost the two generations now that they haven't had to fight the civil rights movement. They pretty much got the cars they wanted. They go to the colleges predominantly they want. And their micro-racism is not enough to make them understand that the price of the people that paid the price behind them. And a lot of it, their parents it's like my friends that are Spanish and they don't teach their kids to speak Spanish. It's like, your history, but you don't.
Yeah, the parents are just as ignorant, right? And I think a lot of people thought, okay, well, I'll give to Black Lives Matter, and now I know about civil rights. That ain't it. That's not even close to it.
I think they're catching enough. Grief themselves right now. Because the argument still is today is the young African-American males shooting each other in the inner city is one of the biggest challenges that we're all facing. And we don't even talk about it enough, which bothers me.
That's quite interesting. That is our pandemic.
It is.
And it has been, and we're psychologically scarred. And, people talk about mental health. I mean, it has been our existence on this earth, on this land we call America. We have been psychologically scarred, and we are passing it down to each generation. And, forget about reparations. I think every single African American should be provided therapy and counseling and life coaching and free education. That would satisfy me. Okay, thank you. I don't need the 40 acres and a mule, but I would like everyone to have access to a qualified therapist, everyone have access to either, a junior college or 4-year university education at no cost whatsoever. And, and for the health of this entire country, I'd like to get rid of every single weapon that is not necessary for one's immediate safety. Is it really that difficult?
No, I posted on my Facebook. I'm going to probably catch hell today because I posted on my Facebook Finland versus the United States, and they were talking about that they don't allow taxes to be paid towards education. So all kids have to go to the same school. So there's no private schools really in Finland. And they were explaining why is because they want to make sure that everybody is friends with everybody. And so there was a lot of really positive cultural things that I saw from their output in Finland. So you're absolutely right. As you start looking overall at the things that we need to do better in the country, that has got to be a tipping point for us. And an inflection point is that at some point we got to address our own problems.
But people are more concerned about, is Kanye making new socks? I mean, who cares? He's an anti-Semite. He's self-hating. He's self-loathing. He needs mental health intervention.
So, well, anybody that dates that side of the family doesn't come out good on the other end.
I think the Kardashians are like Dracula, man. They get into you and your whole life is fucked.
They're witches. They're witches.
hey, because I see the number that, hey, they said, I hate to say it, Chris Rock was on point to some degree.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm in no mood of getting slapped, but
me neither. So the last thing I had to ask you before you get out of here, because I know you got to run, is, all right, why are they making so many remakes of good movies and they're going downhill?
Because the eyeballs are guaranteed, right? Because people are going to go, oh, I grew up with that. Oh, I remember that. So the curiosity is guaranteed. And listen, the history of the entertainment industry, we have always done remakes. We have always done reboots. There's very little originality. Something, something has been remade. Some movies, some series have been remade, or it's an iteration of another. I mean, there's really very little originality out of our business. And historically, it's always been like this. But the tent poles and these reboots, it's because those who have the job to create content have become exhausted and lazy. And it's just so easy to say, hey, let's reboot, you name it.
White Man Can't Jump. That's the one that's out there right now.
Reboot. Oh my God. Okay. So
replace Wesley Snipes and Willie Harrelson. It's like, it's like
was
something.
There a great demand for another version of that?
No.
Also keep in mind, these studios and networks are rebooting product that they own. So, it's kind of like, well, Sony wants to reboot a series that they did 15 years ago because they own it.
Yeah, they're trying to make this greed.
There's a lot of that going on with this too. I wish they would come on. I'm still available. Let's do In the Heat of the Night once again. I mean, it's really quite silly.
No, you're right, because I think it's greed to me. What my vision sees is greed, and they're just laziness, and they just want to make a quick buck. So I don't understand that. Once again, there's Netflix, Amazon, Paramount Plus, and all these other people that they're swimming in money and don't want to pay the creativity of it side of it.
Listen, when a series is done for Hulu, let's say, the writers and the director and the producers and the showrunners, they may get a nice chunk of money, but everyone below that, I mean, the actors get you're allowed to pay California minimum wage sometimes in these streaming projects.
Really?
And then when it reruns, it has to rerun 100 times before you get $27.
Wow.
So the whole system was made to cheat the talent. And that's why the writers are sacrificing their careers to help rebalance the divide between those who have and those who have not.
Wow. God. That's a
really,
lot to chew.
It's tip money. I mean, listen, am I digging ditches? No. Am I fighting fires and helping people on the streets? No. I'm just a stupid actor who's hired to entertain people. But I also would like to have disposable income to help charities, to help my community thrive, to go to my local supermarket, to be able to drive a car, to be able to have a good mortgage or rent and afford it. My well-being helps a lot of other people, and that's what capitalism is, right? So why,
Right.
just because I'm an actor, why should I be left behind? But because of the greed of others? It's the typical American story, and thank God we have the right to strike. I'm not fearful of getting my head bashed in when I'm walking the picket line. Like a lot of other people, lives are threatened. But the people who came before me sacrificed their lives to give me the right to strike.
That's correct. That's correct. I mean, I remind my students every day. I said, the 3 boys in Mississippi, I gave some awards out this year with their names on them. And they're like, why'd you give us? I said, because these guys sacrificed so all of us could be together in this room. I said, the civil rights bill was on the edge of not being signed until they passed away. And then the pressure from his wife, one of the his Schwartz's wife, and then the pressure from somebody else forced their hand. And I said, and the thing is, sadly, is they should have never had them enforced.
No.
To sign.
Well, listen, no good things that help mankind should be forced, but we have so much evil in the world. I'm a woman of faith. I know that righteous will win out, but there's so much pain in between, right? We know that we know that the former Marine in New York who killed that young man will eventually see justice somehow.
Right.
maybe, but at the end, those who are righteous will win at the end of the day. But we have to go through a lot of pain to get there. We can't give up. We can't call uncle. We have to fight for what is right. And that's what these strikes are about.
Oh, no, I agree with you. I mean, listen, I'm a gun owner and all that, but the school shootings, I'm just, as a teacher, I'm honestly, look, I'm over it. I am so far over it when it comes to assaults on children with lethal weapons. I am so over it. And at some point I'll be here. I could be here all day, and I know you got to run, but that right there to me is we're sitting at a level of stupidity in this country that I can't even wrap my arms around.
It's a level that we certainly have never seen in those of us who are of a particular age.
Right.
Our grandparents, our parents and grandparents saw it during the civil rights movement.
And it's all socially driven right now, but it's all etched in our history. It's all etched in the history of what we got. Yeah, and I told everybody, and I tell people all the time, we haven't reached our pinnacle of what we're capable of, because we constantly hold one section back or another, and then some of it we hold ourselves back, because the amount of African Americans that hold other African Americans back from being able to pursue their goals and dreams is just as crazy, and it's the colonization mindset.
We are our own worst enemy. We are our own worst enemy, but we have to acknowledge the fact that it is a result. It is the collateral damage of enslavement. So it's not because we're lacking anything in our DNA or there's something so different. No, it is because we are still trying to survive the psychological generational damage of enslavement.
Oh, I agree. And it's not going to happen overnight, because you really think about it, you really aren't removed until 1964, which means you were up until 1964, you were dealing with de facto slavery to some degree.
Correct.
And without question. 64,
Without question. And the lack of generational wealth and education. And I mean, it goes on and on and on. So I get it. but we also can't use that as a crutch.
Right. No, absolutely. At some point you have to teach the next generation to do better. Because look at you, look at me, look at, others. We just figured it out. And, Nelson Mandela said it, you can't exercise your rights unless you understand your rights. You need to be educated, understanding the rights. And the problem is that we fight education. I see it all the time. The young African-American students fight education. Instead of embracing it, it's how long, what's it going to take for me to get out of here and move on? And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
You just look on TikTok, it'll cure you. Just look on TikTok. But
I
hey,
can't look at that crap.
I know.
Social media has killed the psyche of America. I don't know about other countries, but social media has killed the psyche of America.
Oh yeah, it has definitely did some chopping up on it. Hey, Banana, I know you got to roll, and much love to you. And tell Gray I said hey, and you guys, you be the best version of yourself today. Mike, you got
Thank
anything?
you. And you
once
guys
again, nice
safe.
to see you. Mm-hmm.
Nice to see you again. And we shall see each other soon.
Yes, we will. I'm gonna try to get out to California. Love you, girl. Be good.